Okay, welcome to the press conference of the second day of the exciting Svidler Gelfand match. We are today after games 3 and 4. Yesterday, both games ended in a draw. Today, Svidler managed to win, playing black in the third game, and the fourth game ended in a draw. My name is Gilad Japhet. I'm co-organizer of this tournament, and it is in the name of my father, Gideon Japhet. As usual, before we drill down into the games, I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you a few questions that I'm sure many chess fans are very interested in. I'll start with you, Peter. Can you tell me a bit about your special nutrition secrets?
I can if you really want to, but to be honest with you, I am, the novelty of this subject has worn off a little bit. I mean, when I came to play in London in the candidates in 2013, people hadn't seen me for like 4 or 5 months, and the change was quite drastic, and it created a lot of interest, and I had to more or less start every press conference by answering questions about my new wardrobe and the way I suddenly look, and it was fun for a while, and actually kind of stopped being fun even during London, and it's been more than a year since, and it's not a subject chess is generally more interesting than dietary supplements, but I will say that I like the way things are going in this respect more than I used to.
Thank you. Boris, can you tell us what types of sports you like and how you combine them with chess?
Yeah, it's a good question, because each chess player we have to needs a physical activity, and each one does. And I used to play tennis and football, but unfortunately, with age, with my knees, I cannot do it anymore. At least in Israel, because we have this cement courts, on clay. It's possible to play, so I switched to ping pong. In the last 3 years, I train intensively. Also, probably lost some weight because of it. So now I am with ping pong at least 3 times a week. I go to a group, a few people and trainer, and we exercise 1.5 hours. Sometimes we also meet between ourselves and we do extra day.
Thank you. Peter, I have a question for you. Reading the Wikipedia article about you,
That's not a good start.
there was a statement you made prior to one of the tournaments, I think in 2005, and you said that you prefer to spend time with your wife and children over training for tournaments.
I prefer almost everything to training. Yeah, that's my major problem as a chess player.
So can you tell us a bit normally about your chess schedule? Do you train?
I don't actually have one. I'm obviously overstating this a little bit for comic effect, but I should be working more, and I generally work very, very hard for really big events, and I played 2 candidates tournaments, one in 2013 and one in 2014. And for those events, I did work extremely hard, and I am basically leaving off those 2, intensive periods in my life where I had support and I had people who were working with me. But when I'm on my own, I really should be working more, and you will not be impressed if I tell you the actual state of my everyday chess work.
Boris, do you ever watch television? And when the time comes when you need, as they say in Hebrew, to clean your head, you need a distraction. What is your favorite distraction?
Yeah, I try not to watch TV, but not to watch too much. I like to watch high-level football, like World Cup now. I watched a lot of Champions League, Spanish League, English League, some news briefly, and I like to read. Probably still I read less than Peter does, but I think it's important.
I think those questions were kind of reversed. I think it would have been better to ask Boris about working on chess and me about watching TV, because I'm a huge specialist on the subject of proper TV to watch, but working on chess not so much. No.
And I want to ask you, because the relationship of Boris and Alex Huzman is well known, who are you training with? And
well, for the candidates, these 2 years in a row, I had great support. I was working with Grandmasters Vityugov and Matlakov, who helped me enormously, and you know, a lot of the credit to, I mean, to my results in London and to the level of my preparation, because the results were not that impressive, but to the level of my preparation in Khanty, a lot of credit must go to them, because they did a lot of work, and I mean, we worked together, but I mean, without them, I'm not sure what I would have done. But once again, they're both very, very strong chess players in their own right. I mean, Nikita is, I think, maybe one spot behind me in the rating list right now, and Maxim Matlakov is pushing 2700, and he's still very, very young. So. You know, they can't be expected to be seconds all the time, but working with them has been hugely beneficial for me.
And Boris, how many years are you working with Alex Huzman?
Good question. 24.
Is there any precedent of working like that for 24
Well,
years?
maybe in old times it was normal, but already. But still, probably we broke all the records.
It's a lot, yeah.
But also, you know, when we started, I remember in '93, one of the chess players of high level came to me and said, "Surprise, you worked with one trainer for 3 years, very surprising. I normally work for 3 months. He shows me all what he knows, and then I'm genius, I can use it in my game, so I take a new one. He shows me what he knows. Isn't it better?"
Okay. No, it's very impressive and kind of enviable, actually. Watching from the outside, you know, it's nice seeing them in action.
No, it's a privilege for me to work with someone who has such a high motivation for so many, let alone the level, but also the motivation to keep motivation to work as a second for, I don't know, 24 years. It's unprecedented.
Also, Huzman sacrificed a bit his chess, competitive chess career a bit.
Yeah.
Right, for some of the years.
Yeah, because he has, I want to say, he has better score with Peter than I do, for example.
Yeah.
Better score with Kasparov than I do.
Yes.
Better score with, I don't know, someone else. Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah, with many top players.
yeah, I remember it was never much fun preparing for games against Alexander. Yeah.
Okay, I will keep my other trick questions for the next interview.
That might be a good idea.
And
yeah.
now we can step into game 3.
Well, let's start. Yeah. This time I decided that I mean, generally I enjoyed working on the Dutch before the candidates, and Dutch is a very fascinating opening, but playing it against people who know what they're doing is less fun than most people think. So I decided to keep it to one game for now.
Gelfand, what opening were you aiming for?
What do you mean? I played d4?
Yes, but
and okay, I know Dutch is a possibility, but also Grunfeld, which Peter normally plays, could be another possibility.
His favorite.
Yeah, could be another possibility.
Yeah, I am aware of the existence of other openings apart from these two, but mainly.
But you wanted to stray from Grunfeld, so it will be more interesting today.
Boris is one of is and has been for as long as I can remember, for as long as I've been playing the opening. Boris has been one of the people who pushed the theory of this opening the most, and I mean, it's possible to play Grunfeld against him, and I don't even have that better result overall against him in the Grunfeld. But it's not that I'm living in fear, but it's nice to try something else every now and then. And G3 was, it always is a bit of an unpleasant surprise, because already here, I'm facing a choice. Objectively, I think, we might have to actually discuss it over the board in one of these games, who knows. But, objectively, I think the C6 should hold in this position. And for instance, this is what I recommend. I recently did a series of theoretical videos on the subject of this entire opening, and this is what I'm recommending. And but the problem with C6 is that the positions you get are somewhat boring. And I thought for a while here, and I thought, let's try something else. Let's try something that will potentially lead to a position which will be, more interesting to play and maybe more interesting to watch for.
So you didn't follow your recommendation?
Once again, there is, there is an element of exhibition here.
Yes.
And
please keep the spirit.
Playing a completely symmetrical position where white, due to an extra tempo, white will be pressing for the entire game. But because it's so symmetrical, black, as I said, I suspect black should be holding. But it's a theoretical discussion which is maybe better saved for another day. So I opted for bishop g7, bishop g2, c5, which of course is also very well known theoretically, and there's a lot going on in this position as well. It's not as if I chose something completely random. d5 is a move, but knight f3 is also a very normal and a very serious move here. And it's possible to take on d4, and there's a lot of theory connected with c takes d4 here. But I chose a slightly left field move here. I went queen a5 check, which is a somewhat risky move, but once again, it avoids mainline theory. And well, black is aiming to get a position where, we will get some position. White will most likely be at least slightly better, but pieces remain on the board, and the position is reasonably imbalanced and interesting to play, or so I thought. But I think Boris reacted very well. This is all theory. But in this position, I think the main line is supposed to be queen e3.
Is there a forced draw option here?
Not right here. No. There's a forced draw available to white slightly before that. But why would Boris want that? I think the main line is supposed to be queen e3. After which you get a position like, let's say, knight c6. Something is lagging here. Knight db5 and. This mouse is seriously laggy, I'm sorry, and knight e6. And it's a strange kind of a position where, you could say that both white knights and black knights are somewhat misplaced, and you get a strange kind of Maratzi structure where, once again, I'm fairly certain white is slightly better, but it's playable for black, and I wanted to get something which is somewhat less known. But I quite like Boris's decision. I think queen d1 is a very, very serious, possibly improvement over queen e3, because in this position, I was expecting bishop e3, but then
knight e6.
Yeah, I finally decided that I can play knight e6, and after
take
knight takes e6 d.
No, you take on c3.
You think? Also this is possible. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I was considering this.
In d6. Ponomarev for Lakitin, I think. Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah, I can't really recall.
Or very similar. Castle. But
Castle,
okay, I don't like this position.
Yeah, it's a strange position because for
black
now
are doing very fine.
Yeah, but if I get, let's say, e5, bishop e6 in, and white doesn't get anywhere, then black is quite comfortable. But after e3, I realized that I'm not really getting the kind of a setup I want. I would like to play something like castles. Oops, that's not the move I want to make. Castles, and d6. But unfortunately, bishop takes e6 almost wins on the spot. Knight takes e6 would have been acceptable for me because there's a lot of compensation generally in those structures. But this just wins on the spot more or less because I can't protect the e7 pawn. And therefore, after castles, I'm slightly stuck, and I can't really do very much, and I have to make some very uncomfortable moves to untie myself. So I started thinking about other options. I almost played queen b4, but did you consider? Yeah, but the problem is it's kind of funny. White can play a3, queen c4, bishop f1, and suddenly very, very centrally, but the queen has no moves.
Yeah.
And black has to resign. So this wasn't a particularly attractive option. And after knight a6, unfortunately, white castles. Yeah, if white had to play knight d2 here, then
queen before.
Possibly, but even something like castles d6 is pretty much what I want. Even if
Why knight d5?
Yeah, I thought this might not be that bad actually. I don't know.
Or maybe bishop d2 even. I don't know.
I'm not saying black has no.
What does knight do on e6?
It will come back to c5 eventually. I thought.
Okay, maybe. Yeah, it's playable.
I mean, with the pawn on e3, I thought, and a bishop on d2, I thought, I'm slightly worse, but it's playable. But the problem is nobody's going to play knight e2 for me. After castles, I mean, maybe it's possible with computer analysis to prove that black can take on d4 twice in some fashion.
Yes,
but
there is a pawn that.
yeah,
can be taken.
it's a pawn sacrifice. It's a very real pawn sacrifice. But something like, let's say, knight cd4.
Boris, why did you castle instead of taking d4?
Instead of taking on,
The pawn in d4.
no, Peter castled. Yeah, he could take on d4, but knight d5, or
Yeah.
even bishop h6.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
Even bishop
oops.
h6.
Yeah, this is very rare.
Knight d5, and then I think it's very good compensation.
Yeah,
Because all pieces-
at the very least, it's full compensation for white. And to be honest, I have a feeling it's more than that.
Pieces, white's pieces, I want to say, are ideally placed. Probably you have to take on d4 by knight anyway.
Yeah, because this doesn't look very nice. But
Yeah.
after knight d4,
I could play
knight-
bishop h6 also, but probably it's not that impressive.
I
But
think-
let's show the line,
Yeah. Whoops. Sorry. It's just
because it's nice trick.
Something is running in the background. I think bishop h6. Yeah, I can take. I
Take
think.
queen d4,
Castles.
knight d5.
Yeah, and rook e1.
Rook e1.
And
Or
after-
queen h4 maybe queen h4. Queen h4.
Maybe even queen h4. Yeah. But
Yeah.
rook e1 as well. Yeah. because
Bishop
I-
g7?
Bishop g7, knight e7, and queen g7.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Knight e7, and if queen e7, white plays queen g7, and he is probably almost winning. Oops, something is. Apologies for my mouse handling, but it really is not entirely my fault. This is a horrible position for black, obviously, and generally speaking, I just felt very, very uncomfortable doing this. But if I don't, as I didn't in the game, if I play castles. Now white takes on e6, and I'm not in time to take on c3, and we get this kind of a pawn structure where, well, black is not lost, but it's quite clear that white will be pressing for the remainder of the game if things go normally, because, well, structurally white, in effect has, half an extra pawn because, the pawns on e6 and e7 are, in order to start, anything at all moving in the center, I need to maybe make like 5 moves in a row here. White will never allow me to get anywhere. So basically, I can only hope to.
No, queen b4. You had possibility of queen b4.
Yeah, I could start with queen b4. Yeah, maybe I should have, but I wasn't really that impressed with this endgame.
Yeah, no. But yeah, exactly. But rook d8, queen e2, and now queen d4. Knight a5.
Something seemed wrong about this, but I can't recall what.
I thought c5. Maybe I can play c5. But I was not sure. You take? I was not sure.
Take before queen.
Queen c4.
Queen c4. Yeah. This actually looks okay. This looks okay, but hang on a second. Why didn't I do that? I think there was some reason, or possibly I was just not paying enough attention. That's always a possible version of events. Yeah, I mean, if this works, this is to be preferred to what I did, because I ended up having a holdable, not a horrible position, but a very passive position where white has all the play.
All right.
Yeah, so this was a very valid alternative. I can't really at the moment explain why I didn't do that. But after, let's say, if we stop here, after I missed this opportunity, if we stop here, basically white has a very comfortable game and a variety of plans to progress. But black has a very solid position. So
You could start with a5 also.
yeah,
first.
this I actually did consider, but I wasn't sure I need to weaken
Yeah.
my position like
Yeah.
this immediately. for instance, something like knight a4.
Queen c7. c5.
And
Yeah,
c5 or bishop c3. I thought, you know, I'm not really
bishop
improving.
d7.
Not really improving my position here. Although this particular position may not be that bad, yeah. But maybe c5 immediately. c5, put the knight on b6, and yeah, I wasn't, you know, I thought keeping it on a7 might be a better idea, because even though white makes a lot of immediate progress by b4 and c5, and my pieces get driven back, it took me a while to realize, but I thought, you know, it's actually not that easy to make any kind of progress, because b5 will make the pawn on c5 very weak, and I can't say I have any active plans here, at least not right now. But
you have bishop e8, knight e5.
Yeah, but yeah, if you give me a lot of moves, this is what I want to do. I want to play bishop e8. I want to play knight e5, bishop c6, and that will improve my position quite drastically. So I'm not sure what white should do here, because in about 5 moves time, I thought I was already quite.
No, maybe rook d1 is okay, and f4 maybe, prophylactic move.
Yeah, that's very possible. But on the other hand, this you know, it creates its own potential problems. I thought some kind of a plan like this might be good. a6 with the idea of playing knight a7, knight b5. Because I need squares for my pieces, and this is the only way I could think of to activate this knight. But I don't think it's actually that bad. Because right now knight a4 is impossible, of course, because of knight d4 and bishop takes a4. And therefore, I think I will get to play knight a7, and then I will either play knight b5 or maybe bishop c6 first. And f4 objectively doesn't really improve white's position that much. It stops knight e5. Yeah. But in terms of structure, you don't really want to play for this early. So it's a strange position, because I'm sure we both agree that white is better. But on the other hand, it's not that obvious what white's plan is and how to
maybe knight e4, no?
Maybe knight e4, yeah, but thought I had some ideas after that. I'm not quite sure what. I can maybe play h6, and you know, I might consider playing f5 if I'm given
bishop c3.
Yeah, but that is yeah, takes.
Queen.
Takes. Yeah, swapping off those bishops can only be good for white, obviously. Yeah, knight e4 probably was a decent move. Very decent move. Anyway, what I think we agree that bishop e1 was probably not very precise, because suddenly I have, you know, actual concrete counterplay here. After knight e5, my idea is to play rook d8 and knight d3 in some positions, so white needs to do something about it. And after bishop e2, you know, I realized maybe the biggest part of my plan. I bring the bishop over to c6, and white now has to either accept the exchange of these bishops, which, you know, helps black obviously on many levels, or white can play e4, to which I thought I should reply bishop e8, immediately planning to bring the knight over to d4 now that the d4 square is potentially weak. So. And also e4,
you
e4
would
clauses.
say that you have equalized the position around here.
I think by this point I am at the very least close to equality. Yeah. I think I'm almost entirely okay. What do you think?
No, but there is tactical point I want to show. e4, bishop e8. White can play f4, knight c6, e5, and the idea to lock because knight b4. Yeah. Let's say if white pawn would be on a3, probably assessment of position would be totally different.
Yeah, that would be totally different. Yeah, that's very true. But it doesn't quite work on a tactical level. So it seems like I'm in time to play knight c6 and then cement this knight by playing e6, e5, which is a whole different situation. So Boris played rook d1. I took and played b6, and here I think I'm just fine, because I mean, after cb white still has a pawn majority on the queen side, but now that I have the c4 square for the knight, and I have a reasonably decent bishop on g7, and you know, a safe position on the king side, and actually white's king side is somewhat compromised, I think my dynamic counterplay is enough for, you know, at least equality here. I was quite happy that, you know, I got this far. a4 h5 seems
This is actually a very cunning move, this h5 for the endgame.
Well, basically, it helps.
Were you thinking about?
Well, mainly it's a move you make, as we say, by hand, because it's helpful on so many levels.
It's
I
giving
might
you a mate threat later on.
yeah, but also if let's
Avoid
say,
mate threat. The most
Yeah, but
important is to avoid mate threat here.
to start with, after I play h5, I no longer have to think about the back rank ever again. You know, I safeguard the position of my own king, which is hugely important in many tactical variations. That I just have it in the back of my mind that I no longer have to worry about blundering something on the back rank, and I can play safely. But also, let's say if white plays f3 here, I'm sorry, if white plays f3 here, it's not a particularly good move. I just want to illustrate my point. The pawn on h5 allows me to start immediate counterplay by playing g5 and creating the idea of g5, g4, which is with the knight on e5. It's a very, very, typical way of playing against the white king side, which brings me additional options. As you said in the game, this pawn was quite useful as well. e4, I went queen b7. I think it should still be fine for white,
Yes,
but I think
white has weaknesses now.
yeah, I think it's easier to play with black. I'm not saying I'm better, but it's definitely easier to play this position with black than it is with white because I have active moves, I have targets to attack, whereas white has to keep paying attention to all those potential weaknesses. And also, I think I had slightly more time here, which became relevant later on. a5, this is the most critical line. a5 takes, knight c4. I must admit I missed rook b1. I thought a5 was almost completely impossible. But after rook b1, I had to make some precise calculations.
Yes. Queen a8 was the best move.
Well, it's not ideal, but after queen c6, there is knight b5, and the threat of knight a7 is very unpleasant. So I can't really defeat this mouse. Whoops! Finally we get the famous glitch. Apologies for that. Second day running, we have no idea why this happens. After queen c6, believe me, because I can't show it on the board, knight b5 creating the threat of knight a7 is quite unpleasant, and black's position becomes disbalanced. So I think I have to play queen a8, and after knight a4, I had to see that bishop d4 is good. But after this move, I think black is very, very comfortable, and in fact, it might be slightly strange, but the move Boris made, which actually loses his passed pawn on the spot, might, at least from a practical viewpoint, be the best move in the position. Because, first of all, it's important to point out that it's impossible to play rook c1 check because of knight e3, fe, and queen takes e4, and now queen f3 will lose. The bishop on e1 is hanging in the end of this line, and there are no good moves with the king because something will drop off after rook c1 and e takes d4. So rook c1 is completely impossible, and obviously, if white does nothing, my next move is either e5 or maybe queen c6 is. Queen c6 is also a threat in many positions. Also, knight e3 check is potentially maybe a threat even right now. Boris played knight b6, which I was actually quite unhappy about because I thought, yes, I win a pawn, but the game should end in a draw after this. Takes. I can try and win this pawn in a different fashion somehow, but I don't think it will improve. For instance, I can play something like maybe queen c6, b7, rook b8.
Maybe even queen b5 here.
Yeah, but first of all, playing some kind of a position like this, king g1, I don't know. I have h4. I think I'm probably still fine. But the point I wanted to make is, even if I do this, something like f2, f3 is still exactly the same position as we got in the game. Maybe I can play. The difference is I can play e5 here, but I don't think it's actually that huge of a difference.
With more time on the clock, Boris, you think you could have drawn this?
I think so. I'm
even
with this time on the clock, I should.
Even with Boris only having 1 minute at this point, I felt that this should be a draw, and I played e5 basically because I realized I had some time to think here, and I realized that queen c5 is potentially a reasonably big mistake, and I wanted to.
It's like a trap that you made.
Yeah, I felt that, you know, I have to give Boris this option, and if he doesn't take it, he doesn't take it. But if he does take it, suddenly I have serious chances for a win.
Yeah.
If he does something like h4.
So what was the correct move?
H4.
Well, any move basically, but
But I
Standing
think-
still was the correct.
yeah,
Yeah, but H4 maybe instead than
h4
standing.
or possibly just queen e2 and you know, waiting for me to do something and
Yeah.
then reacting to it. It's almost. I mean, I can try playing. I don't know, playing queen c6, f6, king f7, maybe pushing
No, here
f5.
you give an idea G5 and then G4 maybe, no?
Yeah, but yeah, maybe allowing this is not that. Yeah, I quite like your idea actually. I think you're absolutely correct. Yeah, just start with h4 straight away, stopping all of my advances on the queen side, on the king side. Let's say if f5, probably f5 is an immediate draw, and then queen e3 and a lot of counterplay. But even if it isn't, you can play something like queen e2, and it's almost impossible to imagine how I will make.
Sometimes the best thing is to do nothing.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to imagine how I will make any progress here. But after queen c5,
It's lost, yeah.
well, it's already very, very difficult. Yeah, I'm not sure what white is supposed to do here, but it's very, very difficult because, I don't know, can queen f2 be a draw? Probably not, yeah.
I don't think so.
No. The point is, queen h3 we will see later in the game, and unfortunately, maybe king f1 might be a draw.
No, but take and
the problem,
h4.
yeah, the problem is I can take, play h4, and now let's say queen b8. Yeah, this is what I was trying to figure out. Queen b8, and if king h7, there's queen f8.
f8,
Yeah. Maybe this holds.
Yeah.
Maybe this holds. But even, let's say, even if I, you know, if I don't make any nervous, you know, if I keep calm and play something like, I don't know, queen h3 and queen d7. Already, you know, this is a huge improvement for me. Although objectively this is probably holdable, but you know, I managed to exchange one of my double pawns for a very healthy pawn on h2. So maybe king f1 was, from the practical standpoint, was maybe the best choice.
Yeah, h3, king h3 was
Yeah.
getting into trouble.
King g1. The problem is you can't keep going to g1 because queen d4 check will come. Once again, here probably king f1 has to be played. But after king h3, queen e2, suddenly, I think it's almost lost. Maybe completely lost.
Here you had a smart check move.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
you didn't take the pawn immediately.
regardless,
It was good.
regardless of which pawn white takes, I play queen f1. The same applies to queen takes e7. I play queen f1 and queen takes f3, creating a huge threat of obviously queen g4 mate. And if queen e8 check, I have king h7 because the queen on f3 also protects the pawn on f7. And this is completely lost for white. But I think queen e5, queen f3, I mean check queen f3 should also be winning because now white is just completely discouraged. I mean, I couldn't, in the time I had, I couldn't find an immediate win after
Queen f1, queen f6.
Yeah, but that probably should be winning.
Double the game.
Yeah, that should be good enough. Although maybe there are slightly more chances here than in the game, but probably not yet. The king is too far away. With the king,
I have to play g4, takes and king f8.
yeah.
Or
yeah,
king g...
This is probably completely lost actually.
Maybe king g7 or...
Yeah, king g7, king h6, and some kind of a zugzwang will come.
No, but h3, king h7, yeah?
No, I think I have to go the other way.
Yeah.
I think I have to go the other way, king f8. But maybe h4, h5 now.
No, okay, not in time, king g6.
Yeah. We're
Sure,
discussing this position, h4, king e7, h5. But now I can take actually, and if it's white's move, it's a draw. But I'm just in time to play king e6, and if king h6,
f5.
yeah, I play f5. King e5, king g7 is maybe a draw, but f5 wins on the spot. So this is probably lost, as is the endgame we got. After queen f4 takes king g7, this is reasonably easily won because I create a pass pawn on the king side. So a reasonable game, but not one I actually should have won.
Boris, do you think that maybe time management could have affected the endgame?
Yeah, time management had affected already a couple of games yesterday. Yeah,
Yes.
I haven't played chess from February. Yeah, so from beginning of February, so more than 4 months. Yeah, so still getting back to feel my best. Yeah.
So let's move on to the fourth game.
By
Did the victory affect the opening that you chose? Did you have a plan for a draw versus?
no,
No.
no. I had some kind of a plan for today, and I decided to stick with it regardless of what happens in game one.
All right, we'll take a break before the next